you think about what it takes for someone to make that decision to change their life, so often it seems that there's some kind of adverse event. Like, I'm talking here about the why that sits behind the reason to change, to lose the weight, to build the muscles. Do you see that often, that there's some kind of catalyst moment?
You actually see a lot of parallels between like the way addicts talk and people who have lost a lot of weight, in terms of they had to develop a new identity. They often have to get a new set of friends, not on purpose, but if you think about, if you were hanging around a certain type of people and you were very overweight, you've probably fallen in with people who have similar habits to you. And even if you still care about those people, as you start to come out of that, there's a few things that are happening. One, if they're not joining you in the things you're doing, that creates a gap. And people can also be very insecure when people they know start improving themselves and they start trying to pull them back in.
Crabs in the bucket.
Right. Why do you got to eat that? Why can't you enjoy this? Why can't you,
That's because you're holding up a mirror to them by changing your life, right?
Correct. So, I don't think he minds me talking about this. My brother was an addict, and he went to prison for a period of time. He had a lot of really bad stuff go down in his life. And one day I asked him, I'm like, was going to prison, was that like your rock bottom? And he goes, no. He goes, honestly, I just woke up one day and realized I lose everything. I get a job and I lose it. I get some money and I lose it. I get a relationship and I lose it. I just got sick and tired of losing. And not always, but you hear a lot of similar stories from people who drastically changed their lives as they just got to the point where they were sick and tired of being that way. And they just realized that if I don't make some kind of change, this is going to continue. And I think one, that takes a self-awareness, which is hard. And having that mirror brought to you is really hard. I can relate in other areas of life. But that why really is at the core of it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a really strong why, it is hard when you start to lose motivation. I was watching a story of a guy who had a heart attack when he was like in his 40s, and then he lost 150 pounds. And he's like, whenever I didn't have motivation, or I started feeling like I wanted to fall back into bad habits, I thought about my kids growing up without a dad, and it made it very easy for me. And so when you have that really strong why, it makes it easier to get through it.
I'm not saying either me or you are going to be able to figure out an answer here, but I feel like maybe there's something we can offer to the question about how to cultivate the why. Is there anything that you do on those days, any disciplines you think you can put in place that will just keep the why front and center? I'm going to throw out one. Something that kind of helped me a little bit was just changing the background on my phone to an image that reminded me of who I wanted to be. And it just meant that even if it gives me a 1% psychological reinforcement in the so that I fall on the correct side of a decision relating to diet or fitness, maybe that would help, because it's there.
A couple things I think about. I think about the people I care about in my life and wanting to make them proud. Think about my kids, how would I want, now I'm going to get emotional. How would I want them to remember their dad? I can remember coming back from all these injuries and I was lifting in the garage one day, and my daughter, she was 6 at the time, and she's such a little spark plug. And she would watch me, and sometimes she would come in and like do some lifts with me and stuff. And I was kind of explaining to her why I do this stuff and why it was important to me. And I said, Dad almost was a world champion. I got really close. And, that would be something that I would really treasure if I got the chance to do that. And she said, are you going to try and be a champion again? And she said it in the kid way that like, but oh my gosh, when she said that, whenever I felt tired, whenever I felt down or whatever, I just remember my daughter saying, are you going to try to be a champion again? Made it easy, And so I had my, it's going to sound goofy, but at Worlds in 2022, I was going through a lot of personal stuff at the time. And I had picture my kids on my phone, and I was looking at that, and I was almost in tears before I'd go out for lifts because I was so amped up and psyched up. And that was that was my why. So I'm thinking about my kids, and then I also think about, my parents and like great people wanting to make them proud. And then honestly, like my personal hero is my grandfather. So my grandfather is part of the greatest generation. He was the funniest person I ever met, with the most integrity of anybody I ever met. And so many times when I think about the person I want to be, I think about my grandfather. And, still to this day, I'll think about him if I feel like low motivation, or if I've really screwed something up, like that sort of thing.